trading is about knowing the field, foreseeing the opportunity, executing at the right moment. Timing is everything.
Bonjour mes amis, bienvenue, welcome to Le Jardin de Tuileries. It is the calm after the storm. It's Sunday morning here in Paris. It's glorious sunshine, it's crisp, and we are the good, the bad and the rugby in partnership with City Index, the leading providers of spread betting, CFD and FX trading. It is good to have you with us for a little bit of a debrief on all things Six Nations 2022. And given that we're in Paris and we're in the heart of the land of the culture, it's an absolute pleasure to have with us our captain of culture, a man still celebrating, Benjamin Kayser, and two plastic members of the French resistance, Jacques and Michel. What do you look like?
Yo, I
just embracing it now. We haven't quite gone to Dan, our cameraman's, where we're cutting our trousers off but yeah.
I mean, they confiscated the bunch of onions and the small bike and the black and white shirt. Yeah. They said, this is okay.
Too far that way.
Too far.
They've left you with a mustard berry and you with a black one. We'll get the watercolours out a little bit later on and start painting. Félicitations to France. How good? What was the emotion at full time for you yesterday?
It wasn't actually at full time. One of those 12 points ahead is one of those where 79th minute was pretty much in the bag, and you saw the crowd was starting to actually really believe in it. The excitement of the first 40 minutes were transformed into heavy weights for 20 minutes in the second half when England bounced back. But I was just genuinely happy, proud, relieved of you think, I mean, listen, if we fell on our faces last night, it would have been such a mess. After two campaigns where that's precisely what we did, and we didn't want history to repeat. I think it's a good bunch of boys. I think you saw the way that they celebrated together. Yeah. First, they really were genuine. They celebrated with the fans. Just mega proud, mega happy. Almost just want to hug them, kiss them, thank them, because we take so much out of what they do.
Absolutely. Oh, you two can I think it's probably worth mentioning at this point that this isn't going to be a show where we lacerate individuals and we call for everybody's heads to go and English rugby needs to be ripped up and start again. This is an opportunity to celebrate what has been a long time coming for France, 12 years since their last Grand Slam, a chance to celebrate Italy and to talk about some of the things that England might want to do a little bit better moving forwards. But should we talk about the occasion last night, first of all, Tins? I mean, we were all sitting together, just the tricolour, the colour, the way that the MC got the crowd involved. It was a spectacular show.
Yeah,
first and foremost.
We talked about it before, hadn't we? That it's a different beast when the public believe in their rugby team, and when you go to Stade de France and you see that, and you could tell straight from the off the way they announce the teams and the crowd shout back their surnames when they score the try, and they do the same. And as soon as they scored, the flags that were out, I've never seen so many flags at a game, and it built, and that you could feel that belief all the way through that first half, and then when the game really starts kicking in, they played their role even further, and it was a pleasure to be there and watch it. I think we've said that France are arguably the best team in the world right now, and it was good to see them get over the line. It sets them up for a massive 18 months.
Even you raised a tricolour at full
I did.
time.
Yeah, I mean,
were you goading the England fans? We were sitting with England Rugby Travel supporters. Were you trying to goad your followers?
Winding fans up?
Or were you just celebrating? I mean, you love Paris.
I'm a huge turncoat, so let's be very clear about that. I'm a mercenary in obviously my beret. I will always go to the highest bidder. No, look, I've always maintained, since I retired, even when I played, I always wanted the best team to win. I always wanted to try and put a good performance in myself and make sure that you got through it okay. And yesterday for me, France were by far and away the better side. They were incredible. I loved the Stade de France in terms of the atmosphere. Obviously we talked before about Twickenham, but that was a real hostile environment. I loved it. but it was a positively hostile environment, if such a thing exists. They were singing in between. I'm not sure what the chant was. They get up and everyone starts chanting. They sing the national anthem. Everyone's waving their flags throughout the whole game, and I just think it was amazing, and it was a spectacle that this French team deserved, because I think yesterday for me, out of all the performances I've seen, was like a real mature performance in terms of, yes, they went down, but they played, their work around the breakdown, their intensity, their speed. We've talked about French teams in the past, their level of fitness, can they compete? They were brilliant across the board. Guys like Jaminet, Dupont, the guy's just an absolute hero, and I just fell in love with it. So at the end, there was a few England fans who sort of walked off a bit miserable. I was actually sitting next to one chap who was very much like having my own portable black cloud next to me, where everything, it was just, I felt a bit like I was like Harry Potter and he was the Dementor. All my happiness was being sucked out. So I had to tell him about it. I said, "Sir, please, could you stop being so miserable? You are literally depressing me."
And he paid for the privilege.
He paid for the privilege. He paid for the privilege to be abused and then to depress me. But I picked up the flag. We were waving, joining in the celebrations, and I think it was just a real moment of happiness for this French side, because it's so long overdue. Think of the amount of talent we talked about in the podcast before, the amount of talent they've had and how close they should have got, and what a waste they haven't had that opportunity. Now I think with this team, as Ben was saying, they're very open, they're very passionate, they're very together, they've got a cool coaching staff, they're playing a really nice brand of rugby, they're physical. What more do you need?
I know. I'd love to sort of get your take on how this French team is now going to be received by the wider French public. We've had taxi drivers and we've had people in restaurants saying, "I don't normally watch it, but I'm all over where France are right now as a rugby team." Is it going to ignite the sporting conscience of the wider French public?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I think they did it in a smart way. So you guys know French rugby. The heart and soul of French rugby it's clubs. Yeah. It's clubs. 2,500 clubs somewhere around the country, and the bénévoles that come every Sunday. It rains. It's melting hot. It's those guys that come on the Sunday, put the cones out, give the snacks to the kids and all that. That's the heart and soul of rugby in France. And I think from the get-go, the French team has repeatedly shown that they respect that they cherish that, and they want to put that forward. Like on their numbers, each number there's basically all the names of the individual clubs that are on it, and under the number of the guy there's his first club that he ever played for. So there's always tribute given to it. The bénévoles are always invited. I think they multiply by 10 the amount of tickets, of free tickets they give to those bénévoles that come. So positionally, strategically, they've done this in a very clever way. On top of that, you have the best player in the world. And let's face it, you have to be proud of it. And he's delivering, and he's the captain. I don't know how much more responsibility he can sort of take on and still deliver. On top of that, if it was possible, you have the World Cup around the corner, and then the Olympics in 2024. So, it's just overwhelming evidence that France needs to get a move on and back their team. But to do that, they needed to connect emotionally with that team, and that's what they've done through that whole cult of the club, and actually identify what is the main asset of French rugby. It's clubs. We're going to pay tribute.
Yeah. But do you think they've also shown that, because before there was kind of that little bit of infighting between the international team and the French clubs and releases that. I remember you said a show a few months ago saying that actually the national team would work very hard to get a good agreement with the clubs, to show them respect, that if the clubs invested in them, they would then show what they could do on the field, and that seems to have worked out really well. Is a bit more peace and accord now, because it seems like there is.
So there completely is one. I think you know that. When you get picked for the international team, you feel that you're letting your teams down because you're being selfish. But then, when you're always sat le cul entre deux chaises, your ass between two chairs.
Yeah.
And it's really, really complicated because you don't know where to go. For once, they decide to put away sort of the little bickering and all that. And to give you an example, when they lifted the trophy, Bernard Laporte called Didier Lacroix, who's the president of Toulouse. He's got 9 guys in this team, and he was invited to lift the trophy in the same time. It's a symbolic thing, yes, okay, but it still means a hell of a lot. And for France, trust me, for that type of stuff, you need
politics. Yeah,
it's complicated because we're all grumpy and stuff. So they finally are working together. The boys, I feel, consider that the French team is theirs, because there's no more rotation given on, this one week L'Equipe said that this guy should be picked, and that's how it was done. They're there all the time. They stay for the whole Six Nations together. The week before, during those off weeks, you get released if you need some minutes with your club, but otherwise your club is the French team, and that's the mindset change is huge.
How do you
is on the field rather than
Yeah.
French team.
I was actually thinking that. Do you remember so I remember when we'd been the national team, and we would see you or see some other guys and you got away to France, you're like, we didn't know the team until the Friday afternoon. L'Equipe would pick the team. We wouldn't know anything. We have no move for the weekend. All that drama you forget, and that's why I say like today is almost like, well, they've obviously been at it for a while, but it's kind of like a line in the sand now. This is professionalism. This is where we're going to go.
Do you remember this last game of Six Nations, 55-35?
Yeah.
I scored a try for France that denied England.
Well done, yeah.
No, denied England.
Everyone scored a try that day. There's this guy, little kid ran off at the stand and scored a try that day.
No, but on that Tuesday, France was like, listen, we're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to give you the team before we announce it to the press. On a Tuesday evening, because you have a Wednesday off, whatever. The boys leave for Paris, because the day off, you sort of go for a walk around and stuff. It was like, well, I don't care. 8 o'clock in the morning. At 8:35, it was in the press. We get called back, crisis meeting, who is the snitch? Who's done this, who's done that? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody was pointing at him, pointing at that. We just didn't know. And then ever since, we knew after the press what the team was going to be.
Wow.
That's how archaic this used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally, you talk about being patronizing. They would not trust us with anything, but probably it was justified because there was no sense of, this is my team, I actually care about it, this is my club. You would always jump in a taxi, it's like, do you play for the French team? This week I do. Next week you don't know. Right. The status of international was so fragile that you can never feel that you're in there, and that's why the World Cups were the changer, because you had to announce a squad and you were there for 3 months. And you could sort of build something.
And they always used to play so well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's mad.
Ripper against Ireland at the Stade de France, which France obviously came through to win. A really nuggety performance in Cardiff, where they held out, and then obviously everything at stake in a Grand Slam game. And England with life in the second half, but France closed it out quite comfortably. Which of those was the biggest hurdle that they've overcome? Or do you just put the whole package together and say...
The best performance is definitely Ireland.
Yeah.
If you look purely in terms of efficiency, they actually were pretty poor against England. And England were poor too. I think both teams could have scored, should have scored more points, whatever, had more opportunities than that. In the first half, you saw the hands were a little bit shaky. You saw Gaël Ficou, Damien Penaud drop some balls that they were in there. The boulevards were open. That doesn't happen really often. And I think Ireland, in terms of performance, was better. Wales was definitely not as good, but you also need to learn how to win those games. Never panic, back yourself, back the team, and move on. And I think that's what they did really well. I was telling Hask, they've probably because Galtier and Ibanez worked for French TV for 15 years, but they're very, very open to the media. And there was an hour documentary before the game, unheard of. You saw the pre-match speech, you saw the halftime, you saw post-match, you saw all those interactions, you saw Sean Edwards, fucking placage, that's all he says. But it was brilliant. You saw the guys listening to him. And you could tell that they never panic, that they back themselves, that they're very humble, that they move on. I think the intensity at halftime for the Italy game or for Scotland when they were pumping them at halftime was the same. And it's Antoine Dupont stepping up and Gaël Ficou stepping up and all the coaching staff stepping up in a good way. So I think they're getting better in different ways, which is exactly what you need to rock up to a World Cup and to be a contender. I mean, you guys know this better than me. It's a different animal, the World Cup. Yeah. And so to actually be a contender, you need to have the full spectrum of possibilities, not just when we're on form, when Antoine Dupont's there and he's untouchable, we can kill anyone. So there's going to have to be plan A, plan B, plan C, and I think that's what we've learned in the last 3 games.
I was going to say that. I was like, now, if you're looking at it now, it's a pretty complete team. Where if you could pick anything, is there any way you think we just need to improve a little bit on that? What you've seen throughout these games, I feel is if against Wales, what you saw is when their attack's not firing, can their defence still get them a win? Yeah. And it did. You saw obviously the performance that they did. They played against Ireland, and you go, well, that's them when they're at their free-flowing best. And then last night was a bit of a mixture of everything, where they missed 3 really blatant, clear opportunities in that first half, and then they were under the pump in the second half. And you could say at some point, if Don Brandt scores, does that really put them under pressure? But their defensive display through the whole game, our attacking breakdowns, how many turnovers they got, you go sort of going through it and go, I'm not really seeing that many weaknesses. Now it's going to be, can they consistently maintain it for 18 months?
So that was going to be my question to you. Do you see France on a growth curve now? Because we've seen a lot of teams peak pre-World Cup, and then sustaining it at the top is the hard part. But do you see a French side that has still got a lot of growth in it, Tins?
Well, I see sense. 27 players or 28 players used throughout the whole tournament. It's so you've got a core squad that you can stick together and build with. Yes, there's going to be opportunities for a couple of others to slide in, slide out. There could be a couple of injuries, but they've got a core unit they can build on. I think they've got a great balance between their coaching structure in terms of people who've been there, won things, and have a balance in terms of what they need to get out of this playing group and how they're going to play. And then you've got some of the best players on the planet. So I think it works. If you're making a cake, it makes a pretty good cake. So it's going to be interesting. I hope they can maintain it, because them playing this sort of rugby will be fantastic in the World Cup.
You mentioned in the stadium, they've got a brilliant thing going where the stadium announcer shouts out the first name and the entire crowd shouts out the surname, and it makes for a really sort of evocative team announcement. But
it's pretty simple.
Very simple. But
why don't more people do it?
Well, I wonder if we'll see that.
Can you imagine it in Twickenham? They go, and James, and someone will be out with prawn sandwich. Haskell, boo,
Sit down. That's all they say. Sit down.
But one of the other things I was going to say is that they also named almost the entire sort of FFR staff. They were going through Sue in the canteen. Way! All of the team were, all the entrepreneur were announced, and there was the most enormous cheer for Sean Edwards, who is just, I think, the first man now to achieve a Grand Slam with 2 separate countries in the Six Nations. But just a word of some brilliant photos of him grinning from ear to ear. You said that you had many happy celebrations. We're trying to avoid his celebrations.
Yes, well, I mean, first of all, we need to get a T-shirt with fucking placage on it, because that's incredible. No, look, you cannot underestimate how good a coach Sean Edwards is. I think, firstly, a lot of people don't. Well, they may know this, but he has this ever-developing style. Like, he's always trying to get better. I remember always looking to see how he can evolve emotionally. There is nobody like him out there. He taught me the importance of defence, the importance of emotion, importance of being resilient. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had the career I'd had. And those early days, and he was a tough man. He's a tough man to please. He's very hard. It can be quite hard on you. But I think emotionally, he sets the tone. And when he speaks, you listen. And when he, a lot of people talk a good game, but would you actually follow them over the top? Sean Edwards is 100% a man to do that. To achieve what he's achieved, to go out of his comfort zone, a Wigan man, to come into a French setup which, for a long period of time, had those unknowns, had all that infighting. It can get very political. A lot of the old heads come out. People have lots of opinions. For him to do that, and for him to turn this team into to add to this the incredible coaching staff, but to turn their team into a team that was knocking England back behind the gain line, leaving them with no place to go. So when England actually got over the gain line, we looked quite a good team. More often than not, we didn't get over the gain line. Guys competing on the breakdown, however many turnovers Gregory Aldrich got, and all the other guys around the field was sensational. But what I also like about it is they chose when to do it and when not to do it. We've seen French sides before where the pressure came on and emotionally someone would go, I'm going to solve this problem, and dive in. I saw guys rolling out, leaving it when the pressure was on, being sensible, picking those moments. And to be honest with you, I think he's had an incredible impact. I think he obviously works very well with those guys, but every team needs a Sean Edwards. And I could not be more fond of the guy. The only thing is, when he wins a championship, he's been known to have a bottle of champagne in one hand and a cigar in the other, bumping into you, mate, to the victor, the spoils girl. And you're like, yeah, sure, you've done that 7 times on a loop. You sort of have to dive for cover. But yeah, he's an incredible man. I think he'd still be partying now, if I'm honest.
I'd love to ask other coaches how impressed they are with his ability to maintain that intensity. When did he take over with Wales? 2008, wasn't it? You see coaches up and down and highs and lows, and he has never dipped from that just ferocious intensity. And that's backed up by 4 Grand Slams, multiple titles. I think he's won over 50 titles as a player and a coach now. I mean, have you ever asked him about how he keeps himself at that sharp point?
I think because he's just a simmering ball of anger at
times.
No, I think actually with Sean, my personal opinion is there's actually quite a lot of emotional depth going on the behind there. He's actually quite a quiet guy at times, but I think there's a lot of things going on there. That's not for me to reveal, but has lots of things going on, I think, and is kind of very emotionally in tune and kind of has this depth, and there's a little bit. You can see there's probably a little bit of turmoil going on in his head, but I think he's very, very passionate about the teams he wants to play for. He's an incredible, or coach for. He's an incredible competitor himself. He never wants to come second. He thrives under pressure. He expects the most from his players, and he puts the effort in, so he expects you to put the effort in. Yeah. And he's harsh and he's ruthless, but also he's an incredible team man that loves a joke and a laugh, and underneath all that is a really sensitive, lovely guy that wants to help you. And it's kind of this whole melange of stuff going on that you can't put your finger on. It's like trying to control a flame, you know, and you just sort of let it be. And sometimes it'll blow up, and sometimes it'll be fine, and sometimes he'll put an arm around you, sometimes he'll drive you, you know, to win a Grand Slam. And that's the beauty of Sean Edwards. There's no rhyme or reason. If you looked at the ingredients label, it would just say most unknown. You know what I mean?
If only we knew someone else who was a very sweet soul underneath. A brash,
exactly.
tough
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say melange. Look at
Melange,
you
look
in
at
the
me.
parade.
Yeah, oui, merci.
Go on then. Where are England?
Oh, can we just do Italy first?
Do you want to do Italy first and
Yeah.
then come back?
Screw England. I'm bored of
Right,
England.
okay.
You know, everyone's going to be dissecting
Forza
England.
Italia. You did the game for FF. Who did you do it for?
French TV.
French TV. Remarkable.
No, but not only remarkable because it's a sensational win, but they completely outplayed them. It's not just an intercept try. It's not just a defensive. They won 3-0 by just tackling everything out there. They were running everywhere. They were actually chucking the ball around. The fact that Ange Capozzo scored that 79th minute try or created it basically to be scored by Padovani was unreal. That loose head prop Fischetti, did you see him?
Yeah.
He was running absolutely everywhere like a possessed human being. No, I was blown away by how much heart they have, by how much defensive ability they had, but also how much they finally decided to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw them lose against England, and I was bored to death because if you're going to lose against better sides, you might as well lose, coming out swinging.
And they didn't. They barely played anything and just kicked it in the corner. They started doing it against Scotland, but got beaten by a team that was maybe a bit more efficient. And every time they had an opportunity, they scored. But then they beat Wales from minute 1 to minute 80. But Wales managed to score some beautiful tries out of sort of individual brilliance. A bit like everybody's happy for France because you need a good French team.
Yeah.
Everybody's chuffed for Italy because Six Nations is going to be a completely different ball game if they step up. Use the under-20s that is doing well. 3 wins, I think, in their Six Nations, which is unheard of. Use those Padovani, Ange Capozzo, who plays for Grenoble, signed in Toulouse, so he's only going to get better and move from there.
And the dialogue moves now because it's no longer Italy to get relegated from the Six Nations, it's Wales.
It's the fickleness of our sport, isn't it?
Remarkable.
Yeah, 4 weeks ago after the first game, God, they need to get rid of them, and then all he needs is a win, and the under-20s just do what they're doing, and suddenly, actually, what could the next 18 months hold for them? Look, I don't think they're not going to suddenly become a top 6 team, but at least they're moving in the right direction, and people need to just keep supporting them. And I said it last year. At least they're starting to try to play rugby rather than for so long they just tried to hold out for 60 minutes. And obviously they had the likes of they had a forward pack whether you say Parisi in there and Castro and everyone else. Whereas now they've got young, exciting players who actually want to play the game, and I think they've got with Garbisi, they've got a player who can really sort of direct them around that. Varney played at his skin. I haven't seen the whole game like you did, but apparently, and he played well last week. So they've got building blocks to sort of get better and believe in themselves. That's what it'll be amazing to see what that win can do for them. It's a shame it's at the end of the tournament actually, because it would have been nice for them to get it earlier, but. Let's just get behind them. Let's have so much positivity today.
They've got real character as well. Did you see the Michele Lamoureux post-match interview? And he was like, "We're not going to celebrate."
You didn't see it?
Just it was fantastic. Just did it with the eyes, just a flick of the eyes.
Yeah.
But you just get a sense that they are. We will come on to England, but it is interesting just at this point, I suppose, to mark. I correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did our Six Nations preview show a couple of months ago, God, it felt a long time ago now, but I think the gist of that was that France are the team to beat. Ireland are going to be very, very close. England, Wales and Scotland can all beat each other on the day, and Italy are closing the gap.
Yeah.
And here we are 2 months on, and France have done a Grand Slam. Ireland went very close. Scotland beat England, England beat Wales, Wales beat Scotland, and Italy have closed that gap. So, I mean, that's part of the reason it's not really worth just ripping everything up from an English perspective and saying, look, everything needs to start again. But, I mean, it's worth a quick question on Ireland as well at this point, because we will talk about fine margins for England and how it could have been very different. But I mean, in many ways, Ireland, having gone to Paris and come close, can take a huge amount out of this as well.
I think they can. I think any other year, they would be Grand Slam champions. But they happen to have arrived in a tournament where France are peaking, and getting better. And I think credit to Andy Farrell. We've talked to that transition fully out of the Schmidt reign is completely done. They're now playing a style. They've stuck with it. They've stuck with the same group of players again. They've got a solid team. They seem to be really enjoying themselves. They're playing some good rugby as well. I know obviously people talk about last week's game, but it still was a record defeat to record win for them at Twickenham. Yeah. And look, just my one thing I'll just say about Italy myself is obviously it might shock you, but I always say anything to get a cheap laugh. And I've obviously been a little bit scathing about Italy the last couple of weeks, not intensely so, but I just love that they won that. Yeah. I love the fact that Josh Adams gave his man of the match medal to Capuzzo, who. I was doing something else yesterday, doing a talk, and I was glued to the TV. I was like, who is this kid? The feet on him, just the intensity, what an incredible player. And I just love that emotional moment, because Josh Adams himself, I think people underrate what a great finisher Josh Adams really is. Yeah. Like, even in a losing side, he still looks brilliant. He still scores some incredible tries. But to hand over your medal, just to think of that, go over to this young player who was carved up with probably that's one of the single-handedly best near finishes you're ever going to see against a good Welsh side.
And the composure then to not actually get carried away in the fact that you've just beaten the fullback, you've just beaten two other people, and then I'll beat the last man and go, actually we need this underneath the sticks because the kick actually matters.
Yeah,
just shows a clarity in thought as well.
Doing his bit for 11 stone men around the world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I just think it's a good thing. I think we're in a really good place. I think, as I said, Ireland should be very pleased about it. But you kind of can't be upset when you've seen what France have done and the way they've done it, and that Ireland they came close in France. There was that period of time where we thought they were going to be absolutely pumped. They came back, they delivered, they pushed them, but then France went up a gear, and I think that's nice to know that the French team now has a multitude of different gears to go up into, because before it was either world class or self implosion. Now it's like a nice little, or whatever, like a Bentley with a load of gears to it.
Ireland go away with massive positivity. 24 tries, they scored 7 more tries than France did. Which you probably lose that a little bit, that no one actually thought how many tries they've actually scored. 24 in the game is massive. It would be probably up there, one of the highest over the last decade in terms of tournament tries. So they should be really proud of where they are. They still have their nuggety best, but when you go to sort of big teams go head to head, someone unfortunately has to lose. And I think on that day France were just their mercurial best, and another day at the Aviva it could have gone a different way.
We asked the question about whether France are still climbing 19 months out from the World Cup. I mean, every Ireland fan will know that they are masters of peaking in between, and you look at Cian Healy, Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony, etc. Is their ability to sustain what they're doing now going to be different this time?
I think, to be fair, that they still have a lot of progress in them. You forgot to say that when they came close but short against France, it's without Johnny Sexton. Yeah. And he is a big old deal for this team. He's the talisman of what they represent. They also lost Kelleher after 25 minutes or something. That's a big old loss. That probably was the reason why it was so shaky and complicated against England, especially at scrum time. So they, like Tim said, they will come up with so many positive, and they still have some young fellas in there. I think Killian Doris is going to get better and better. I do think that Sheenan is going to get better and better. I think he's 22 or something like that, the Leinster hooker. So they still have some guys that are learning what it is to be a real world-class player, that can learn from John Sexton, and you just don't know how good they can be in a year's time. It's a long way away, but at the same time it's tomorrow. So it's exciting.
No, I agree. If I don't really want to put negativity, the only thing you would say is what comes behind Sexton. Can they get that really shored away? That is possibly the only thing you're really looking at, is because he's such a huge character. He does quite a lot. You hear he does quite a lot of the coaching, which I assume he will. Even if something did go wrong, he would stay in that group because that's how they work it. But if he's fit and healthy, they've got something really positive to work off.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. So let's bring in our pizza partner for the Six Nations 2022. It is, what is it? It's 9:15 on a Sunday morning. So pizza partner Domino's aren't actually active at this point in time. So instead, but given that we're in Paris, pan au chocolat all round. So a different type of dough, but hopefully something that you can chomp on, just to keep those who've got very incredibly irritated by our by our dough ball partners over the course of the tournament. Oh, I see, you lost yours. Do you want one of those or not?
I'll have a little
Have a
pain
little pain au raisin. Thank you, Domino's, for all your support over the course of the Six Nations. I'm sorry we're not doing pizza at 9:15, but we are doing pastries. We were going to give it to a player of the tournament, but instead, I'm glad I'm asking you with crumbs everywhere. We're going to give our dough baller of the week to...
We're going to give it to a couple Woods. There we are. Easy. Because individual effort, a stand-up performer for Italy, a romantic story. We love a bit of romance here. So for the story, I think it should be a couple Woolsall because he was brilliant, and I'm sure he'll love a pizza. Well, actually, probably.
What more? It's a bit like taking sand to the desert, isn't it? Help yourself. Ice to the Eskimos. Well done, Ange Capuozzo. You are our dough baller of the week, our last Domino's dough baller of the week for this year's Guinness Six Nations. We did quickly actually just want to give a quick shout out to the Wasps women team for their dough baller response video on Instagram. The girls chowing down Domino's pizza in the gym, having obviously been awarded by you a couple of weeks ago. Pizza and workout, the perfect combination. Ellis has got a little bit of work to do to match that.
I also saw Giselle
Mather, yeah.
Yeah, from the Wasp ladies yesterday, so she was very happy with their shout out and was very happy to do the video. So
Good.
Well, I mean,
Spreading the peace, the gospel of pizza.
But I didn't know it was her. Actually ran up to me and goes, "Thanks so much for pizzas." And then I said, "Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it. You guys were fantastic. What an incredible effort and fully deserved."
Good. Right. Once the Wasp, always the Wasp. Yeah, exactly. Well done, doing your bit. We told you last week, you now can be a dough baller too. The campaign has been such a success that dough balls are now available in most Domino's stores. You can thank us later for that. And just a reminder, Domino's are offering 50% off pizza when you spend £30 or more online. A big thank you to the team at Domino's. We have had a lot of fun over the last few weeks. And the good news for those of you who like to leave comments below the line is that we won't be chewing on next week's show. Good, right. Thank you to Domino's. Before we come on into England and the detail, I just want to ask the question, and we're trying to be positive, but this isn't terribly. Wales, Scotland, or England, who's got the biggest hole in their boat at the moment?
I'd say the person who's got the biggest hole in the boat was the people that thought after Scotland beat England during the first season they were going to go on and win it.
Yeah.
I'd say that person's boat is currently sunk and covered in coral. Only because I would never laugh at anyone's misfortune, but again,
but it is Scotland, so why not? Yeah.
But it was just the biggest hype up ever.
Yeah.
It was like, we're going to take over the world. No, we stuffed it, yeah. So I just think that bloke's probably a bit, because I think the team and Gregor Townsend would never have thought like that. No. Internally, they never would have thought that. But that is the power of the media and some overeager fans setting an agenda and then turning that agenda's made of caramel and just melted in the sun. So I would say they've got a pretty big hole in their boat.
Look, I think we're where we were, where we thought we were at the start of it. I think Scotland have an incredible sort of 23 now, but behind that there's work on. They need a few more. They need to take those 23 to 30, and on their day can cause any team a huge amount of problems. But our thing beforehand was, would they have the consistency to go and deliver that away from home every single game? And they haven't quite had that. And then obviously with Ireland, they're off the field. I wish people would stop. If boys go out for a beer, can you stop making it a big deal?
You surprise me, given the way your career went.
But you talk about bringing teams together, bonding. That's done on the social side, and that might be done over a beer. It's not a big issue.
People snitch, by the way. Like this is the weirdest thing. We talk about the camera phones thing. Is that I know club teams in both France and England and international teams where fans will photograph lads are out having a beer and will send it to team managers, post it to stitch them up and go, you shouldn't be drinking. And I don't understand why you put your narrow world view and your limited interpretation of both health and nutrition and sport and imply that is, for example, I remember when we lost a Grand Slam game against Wales, Dan Cole, Tom Croft, three other people got set upon by this angry England fan, a woman and her family, going, you I wasted all my money to come here, you shouldn't be drinking, you shouldn't be smiling, tore it all up, and this whole palaver. And I'd always say, mind your own business. Mind your own business. The lads want to go out for a beer, and it's sensible they turn up.
Then the media jump on the back of it, and they all go, "No, this is No, hang on, all you guys are writing the media get absolutely smashed after every game, and you still write the same garbage afterwards. So. Maybe you shouldn't drink, and maybe you write something that we want to actually read. But there you go. They don't like it when he comes back here, do they? Yeah. But it's just like no one judges anyone else about their own job. Just like people need to go out for a beer. If it happens to be in a public place, so what? Is it better if they did it behind closed doors and you didn't know about it? just because you didn't know about it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then that's possibly why Finn didn't play yesterday. You have to sanction some of those guys, and you're just like, I want to see the best players on the field. I don't want to make it feel that the Scottish Rugby Union have to do something because someone said, "Oh, we saw them out."
But it's also the belief that they have to do something about it.
Yeah.
Like
I was going to say that.
and I'm not going to talk about the particular incident, but there has been something happened recently where a club, obviously something terrible happened, but the club went, listen, this is, this will be taken care of by someone else. This is what we do. This is how we believe in it. A different sport. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but until you let the media and the public set the agenda, you're always making a rod for your own back. That's what I've said before about like Dave Chappelle and Netflix, or that great quote that every library has a book that's liable to offend you. That's life. That's it. If you don't like it, it's not a problem. But the very fact that everyone feels like they have to do something, we better be seen to be doing something. We need to do an inquiry, like with the Barbarians. We're like, yawn. Who cares? Move on. Boris Johnson was going to get fired, and everything else is going on, and then something else 10 times more tragic happens, and the agenda changes. It's just everyone just relax and worry about yourselves.
The sooner you're in charge of World Rugby, the better.
I know.
Champagne buckets on every corner.
Like Jackie Moon says, everybody love everybody. That's it. So you need to
get a ring for it.
Profound. Jackie Moon.
Semi-pro.
Who's got the biggest hole?
I don't know.
What did you eat last night? Josh, probably.
Josh, I'm eating.
2 days in Paris and spent the entire time with the bog roll.
Now when he walks, it's just a whistling noise. he ran past it and I thought a kettle had boiled. I was like, fucking hell, it's a kettle.
Right.
Yeah. Paul,
Would you like to rephrase?
No, that's staying in. Don't eat scallops on tour.
Who is bailing the hardest in their boat at the moment? Wales, Scotland or England?
I think, looking at it, I think Wales, probably. I think they go through they're about to go through another massive period of transition. You've got a guy fly off with 100 caps who has to lead the team out with a guy behind with 150 caps. He's like, oh, big day for me. Oh, not as big as the word behind me in many ways. But I think they're obviously going to lose all that experience, and they've got some holes to fill within that. Again, they didn't really find their attacking shape, which is not. They've relied on really more individual genius rather than actual creativity, and I think that's why I think they're in the toughest spot. I still think they could beat they could beat Scotland on their day. They could beat us on their day, but I think out of everything, I think that was they're the ones that are bailing the biggest.
Let's do England. You were obviously a huge Eddie fan. We have enjoyed having him on the pod enormously, so I'm going to ask you, Ben. Stick or twist?
It always depends on. You're asking me whether they should change.
Yeah, I mean that is the noise. I'm asking you to comment on the noise that. Well, that's the answer.
Question, right? If you can have Farrell and Sean Edwards to come, yes, of course, it's not going to happen, is it? So all I know is that when you ask who's got the biggest problems out of all those teams, England still seem to me that they've got a lot of striking power. They've got a lot of depth.
They have a lot of guys who haven't peaked yet, who are just getting better. If you take Ellis, for instance, how many loose heads props do you ask to go in the backfield to run those balls on the long kicks? There's not many of him. After 30 minutes, he has 74 meters run. He was by a mile the guy who ran with the ball the most on the whole field, both teams combined.
What did you make of that as a tactic out of interest?
I think it's one of those Eddie Jones power play. If it works, it's brilliant. If it doesn't, well, worst case, we lost against France. I didn't think it was the best idea. You can't ask him to scrummage against a human piano, Winnie Antonio, who's backed with Paul Villemse, and do his absolute best. And on top of that, I mean, imagine the pressure it is. And one of those, I've never had to play that position, but it's one of those positions when you run full tilt and you're the baby rhino. If you don't kill somebody, you've done nothing. It's not about like doing your little pick and go, doing 1 meter and releasing the ball. You need to do something extraordinary, and that's a lot of pressure. I was lucky enough I was sitting next to him actually during the game, because I was pitch side, and so when he came off, I was next to his bench, so he was sitting next to me, and I was asking him, and he's like, mate, a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and Winnie Antonio was enough. So
finally, a front row is appreciating what we do in the backs. It's not that easy. It's not
without the scrummaging bit, I think.
Well, it's always it's not easy to get in there. I know it's not. I don't want to get in there. It's not easy running all those meters either, is it? When you're at high speed.
Who's the player with the most offload of the whole tournament?
Probably
Cyril Bay.
Is it?
He's a loose head prop for France.
Thank you for appreciating it. Sorry, was I talking about offloads? I thought we were talking about misses coming through.
Appreciating what the backs are doing. Well, so you appreciate what the forwards are doing.
We always
We
appreciate
let you go on about the scrums last week, saying it's the best part of the game. Everyone's
Hang on,
decided
there's
you said it was the best. Stop overplaying your hand. Right? We all agree. The front row are great. Hookers are great. Let's not try and sell the front row too much.
So back to the question, Eddie.
Stick onto it.
Because
I personally wouldn't change it.
yeah.
You're a year from the World Cup. There's no clear transformation that can be done better. Does he need to have other assistants? I don't know. Do the players need to take hold of this team?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think if somebody needs to get rid of Eddie, it's the players. And I don't see how they're going to do it. They need to push him away in the sense that they need to grab hold of the leadership. Use him for what he's good at. He's obviously a good manager. He's obviously a good strategic brain. Then use him for that. But I think at the moment he's too much sort of the center of attention for everything. And I would like to see the England players step up in that sense. And so my answer is no, keep him 1 year. I don't think I would see any improvement.
I would say you don't have the setup to change him. I think you have the players. What I would like to see is in some way is not messing around as much, not people out of position. You've got to have a clear view now, 18 months out, who you think are the players that you want to take there.
And do you think that has been clarified or complicated or
Well,
confused?
it's sort of complicated. So now he's got to figure out what he does, and I think. But I want to see some consistency. I'd like to allow players to get comfortable. I know that's not necessarily the right word, but comfortable with the players around them, that they know that they're a squad and they can form the bonds that make, 27 players that France used that have been together and kept together, creating those friendship bonds that do turn up on the weekend. They do. We talked about it on Saturday when we were doing the thing with Six Nations. You have to care about the guy to your left or to your right, and if that changes every week, it's very hard to suddenly do that. You might really be bonding with someone else, then they change it, and you're restarting. And I'd like to just see a bit more consistency. Play the best players in their best position, and actually stick to how you want to play. Yeah. Stick to one game. I know you've got to do nuances around each game, but have a belief that you set there, and then the coaching staff's got to stay the same till that point.
So but it's very interesting when you say consistency in selection, and France obviously been. I think it's very interesting that France have used so few players. There are enormous mitigating factors around it. You want to build a team around Manu, and he pulls up out of the first game.
Well, there's another thing you've got to say. You can't be breaking players in a week of a test match.
Okay.
Well, Joe Marchant was probably the best player for England. Why did he not start?
When?
The first games.
He was on the wing.
Yeah, so why did he not start outside centre? There's also been adjustments that you could have sort of figured
out.
But
you've also had to change things. So Luke Cowan-Dickie gets injured, Tom Curry gets sticky.
So there is.
But he does get injured.
Look, with how the Premiership is, we are going to have to deal with it. France and England are very good.
Eddie Jones has got well, it's not harder than France.
But what you don't have to do is, if Marchand played really well at 13 in the autumn, right?
Yeah.
Right, he's my 13. If a winger goes down, you've got a shed load of wingers that you can go to. You've got Adam Radwan, you've got Hassel Collins, you've got
Fucking Singer
coming back. Who gives you something that Manu could offer.
You're also missing May and Watson out of that back three.
So you've got other players you could try out, and actually it would be useful to find out they're playing in their position where they're used to playing, and yet you're going, well, actually Marchant's played pretty well in the centre for it. And then you're not just moving a mixture of people around. I think he's got away with it a little bit in the fact that Freddie Stewart played so well yesterday on the wing, but still, it's a massive ask then to just as Stephen Jones said this morning. Furbeck's had like 3 sittings with England and then only got 4 caps, and he's just like being brought in. Oh, it hasn't quite gone well. You can't have that. You've got to allow people to actually fit in and feel part of something, to actually have a little bit of comfort in the fact that I know how we're going to play. It would be interesting if you ask Furbeck, he's like, every time he's come back in, they're probably playing a completely different style.
Yeah.
So that's where you've got to. I know he looks at so many stats and he changes to the stats and what the data is telling me, but sometimes rugby is rugby. It doesn't change that much. Get quick ball and do play one-out runners and try and offer, and you'll still make yards and you'll still be in the shout. If you get in turnover at breakdown and your ball's slow, you're going to be under pressure and you're going to have to kick the ball away. That doesn't really change. So I think they've got to get back to just lifting the tempo of how they play I thought Randall was fantastic again when he came on in terms of lifting tempo, and that allowed the likes of our forwards to then carry the ball quite simply and still get over the line, and then that allows offloads, and then that allows a different game.
I mean, I think trying to, I like Eddie, but I'm also ruthless a lot of times. You guys know, working with me in business and point of view, if it's the right thing to do to let him go, then it's the right thing to do. It's business. There's no love lost in business, But I don't think it's the right decision to make, because I don't think there is the people to replace him. I think the Times or whoever, the Telegraph, whatever, they did a list of coaches. They've talked about Stuart Lancaster. We've tried that. Steve Borthwick, I think, is doing a great job at Leicester. I'm not sure if he's necessarily ready or would want to take on that responsibility. I think he would be a fantastic coach one day. Baxter, they talked about from Exeter. Would he want to do that? Again, going into this England setup, fans and media think that coaching England is all about the coaching. You can take your club values. It's
Gatland?
Absolutely not.
Scott Robertson?
Yeah, they talk about Gatland or Scott Robinson. Whether they want to whether they would come across and do that, whether he could have that effective change. Now, there's one person that could come in that has the ability to do that, because he's done it on so many Lions tours, to come in and do something in a short period of time, is potentially Warren Gatland. But coaching for England is very different than coaching for any other team, and I don't actually think that England are that far away. And I would actually put more of a focus on the players, because I can see, having gone with work with Eddie, what they're trying to do. So they're trying to play a fast-paced game. They're trying to get guys over the game line. I thought most of the time yesterday didn't go over the game line. Players went to the ground far too easily, fell to the floor. I thought that the ball off the floor was too slow for most of that first half. I thought that defensively, I thought Sam Underhill was brilliant. I thought Courtney Laws was physical. I thought Ellis Genge was physical. But I think, in comparison to France and the dominant hits, I might be talking out my arse, so I haven't looked at the stats, but just from that impression again, and being from an impression in the stadium, I could be talking utter crap, because people around me were coaching and people were seeing stuff, going, why don't they go do this? Why don't they go, oh God, it's such a simple mistake. You're like, listen, it's very easy in my ivory tower to sit on the field and look at it, but I would just say from a point of view of knowing the way that Eddie wants to play, which is fast, physical, direct, guys over the game line, I thought because we didn't win the game line, at times we looked a bit lost. Guys weren't in motion, trying to get over the game when they were getting the ball, so they were standing still, then getting the ball, and then you've got a blitz defence coming at you. Have to be on top of them. I thought when Randall came on, there was some quicker ball there that actually worked well. I also thought that we went to ground too easily at times, didn't fight for that stuff, and we also, when we got a little bit pedestrian, we then just booted the ball. And I think sometimes you've got to have faith, go back to an edge or go to side of foot and then try and attack again and not give it away. And remember that ball's so precious at international level. And I think you've got to kick at the right time. And Eddie says continuously that the team that kicks the most, or kicks well the most, more often than not wins. I don't know, I can't comment on that, but I would say that I know exactly what England are trying to do. They're just not executing it well enough at the moment. And I think that when they did execute it well with pace, March and carved up. But, you've got that back line does not necessarily at the moment have the penetration, I don't think. They can create one-on-one and beat you incredibly well. They can finish stuff, but they need those sledgehammers. And I thought if guys are standing still, they're not getting over the game line first two phases, they just look pedestrian. But I think all of that intensity needs to raise. I think they need to be more physical in defence. Look, France competed at every single breakdown. England have got the ability to do that. They weren't quite getting the turnovers that they should have done, weren't quite causing that trouble, because they were always on the back foot.
40% of France's breakdowns were sub 2 seconds.
Which makes the game so much easier to play. If you look at this, so this is where stats can be confused. England made more meters, nearly double what France did. Yeah. Made more gain line carries, made more passes, won more rucks. So they kicked more from hand, 30, 34. So stats can lie also, because ultimately 3 tries to 1, and the scoreboard tells you what all you need to know. So that's the thing, is you can get wrapped up in stats and make them look whatever you do, but the most important stat is getting that ruck speed.
So it's interesting what I said. Again, you look at it from the sideline and go, I wouldn't have said the gain line thing. I thought a lot of times we got knocked back because I thought France were very dominant. But again, the stats just, I did luckily I caveated it. I'm probably talking shit, but it just from that aesthetic point of view, you've got people then dictating opinion without seeing the facts. But I would say, right, and again, I doubt things have changed much since I was in there last time. That all Eddie talks about is speed of ruck. Right, all he talks about is speed of ruck, fitness to be there to get to clear stuff out. Hello, little bird.
Smelling a croissant.
Only bird I'm allowed to talk to when my wife's not here. And but they talked about the speed of ruck. Right, the way they train, they talk about this breaking players in training. Is the intensity of the way they train is fast ruck ball, is intensity. I thought actually there's a couple of times when they went wide, when they got turned over quite a few times yesterday, the players on the field didn't do their jobs. The second man didn't come in and clear because he forgot that when you get into those wide channels, doesn't matter what number you've got in your shirt, if a fucking breakdown's open, go and clear it out. But Eddie trains them like that. That's why I don't get Eddie trains them to leg drive, trains them to accelerate, he trains them to have quick rucks, trains them to play quick. But so I don't understand if you are knowing what I know.
Are you putting more of it on the players?
I am, because I just know that there is no way that Eddie Jones would ever coach of what I've seen. I've been through it, slow ruck speed. He used to shout, "Fucking ass, mate, get fucking on with it, mate, you're playing fucking sim." I literally had to be next to the guy as soon as he went down. Training is so short and intense that speed, the breakdown speed, has to be suboptimal. He will have analysed millions of games and known the team that wins has slow ruck speed. He encourages the guys, leg drive, contact, be in motion, accelerations, get off the floor, work. We just got outworked yesterday. We weren't as intense where we should have been, at times, and we just didn't do what we're supposed to.
Mainly in that first half.
Yeah.
We turned it around in the second half and we looked completely different. We looked like a different team.
But I don't think it's that. What I mean is, I don't think it's that far off. I don't think it's the bad coaching. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I just think at the moment we came against a much better side, playing, hitting their straps. I don't think we're far off, and I don't think it's got anything to do with the coaching. I just think it's a classic case of trying to execute on a field. But how hard is it to get everybody on the field to play well? We're just not playing that well, but we're not that far off.
Playing the best team in the world as well.
And I'm my little rant, it's like we're talking nuanced moments here. You still got those stats. You still did good bits. We almost won it at one point. We almost came back. And and if I think we'd had some composure, if there hadn't been that long 3-minute scrum period where all the momentum got taken out of it, it might have been a different story on a different day. So I don't think we're that far off, really.
The other point I just throw in very quickly is, and there was an interesting article from Sir Clive Woodward who said you cannot just focus on World Cups. There are other tournaments to win, etc. And all the talk in England is about the World Cup. But if you look at it,
really, because that made his career, really.
From the guy who lost loads of Six Nations and won the World
he's probably
Cup.
speaking from
The
experience.
guy that hasn't done anything since 2005 in rugby.
My point
I
is,
watched Oasis the other day. Doesn't mean I can play a fucking guitar. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just
Right.
he needs to just relax, mate, because he's just
my
talking
point
utter
though
breeze.
is that if you are looking for coaches who know what it takes to go deep into a World Cup, there are very few who you'd pick ahead of Eddie Jones. Australia final 03, Japan 2015, England 2019, one of South Africa
This is
07.
the enigma that Eddie is it, and this is unfortunately something that he's created because everyone used to think it was fun in meetings and everything. There's no doubt he does all his homework. We've seen that from when we talked to him. There's no doubt he can take that England team to play the best game that probably England have ever played in that semi-final, and he's done that on other occasions as well. So there's no doubt that he's still the most winningest coach that England's ever had. It's Americanism, isn't it?
American.
So there's no doubt in that. It's just my only thing is when does the show become to overtake from actually what's going on the field? And I just feel everyone's sort of has more had enough of the show rather than.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think because it's not very and that's the sad reality. I think it's like, if you don't toe the party line or the perceived party line, or you don't look as people expect you to do, you don't act as the way you should expect you to. This media, they will have their day because and the fans will have their day. The people who don't understand it. Because if you said to me, did those guys train hard enough, England team? Yeah, 100% they would have. Did they prepare enough? Yes. Did Eddie Jones go through every eventuality? Yes. Did the performance not happen on the field? That's fine. But because and all the kind of the winning stats and everything else, what this team's done and going to a World Cup and all that, all gets overshadowed because the guy doesn't want to play the game that actually none of us want to play. And I think that's pretty weird, really. And I think it's quite sad that we do that in this country because then I think
There's a man pushing a scooter with empty bottles of wine and water. I think I've ever seen anything like that.
Is he
Is he
IV'd up as well? So he's just drank all that wine and then he's IV'd up to.
It's 9:45. He's pushing vin rouge around the Louvre. Why would you not do that?
Can we get back to France?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I so we must wrap up. Actually, it's time for a coffee and a Gaulois.
It's getting hot.
We've been very nice about France, and rightly so as well. England are going to get. It's going to get very sort of fervent over the next few weeks. Everyone's going to have a lot to say. Just calm down. Just Farrell. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Owen Farrell as England captain. Johnny May, Anthony Watson, lots of other players to come back potentially. 18 months, 19 months is not very long, as you said earlier, but it's also plenty of time. Is it just?
I think the less you speak about Eddie Jones, the better for England. It's constant on the players. I think if you give the example of guys you need to go out of position and do the hard work even if it's not their responsibility. That's Gabin-Villiers, for instance. Yeah. You saw him doing rucks, contesting the ball, going for it because it's his job. You talked about the ruck speed. There's definitely not a number 9 that you want to give ruck speed like Antoine Dupont to go around the fringes. But it's also because I think and I feel that those players took hand and took the leadership of this team. I don't know how the England team works from the inside, but for me, Eddie Jones is too present. He's the overwhelming presence of this team, and I just feel that maybe he's got such an aura and such a charisma and such a take on the team that he's maybe overly casting a shadow on that team. Now it's up to the players to step up. Are they good players in England? Of course they are. Do they have striking power? Of course they do. They're probably one of the only teams who can have sort of a plan A, plan B, and be able to match intensity of South Africa whilst speed and agility of the All Blacks or France, whatever. There's not many teams that can do that. Yeah. There's teams that are a lot more one-dimensional. So if anything, I think they should focus on leadership within the England squad, grow those guys to take on the reins of the team, because if they do, they can turn things around a lot quicker than I think you think. Okay.
Final thoughts, because you've got to go and get your Eurostar. Rugby World Cup 2023. Do your bit for the tourist board. It's going to be unreal.
Well, imagine for the lucky buggers that are going to be there Friday the 8th of September 2023. France has just beat the All Blacks for the opening round of the World Cup. Everybody's buzzing, and then you meet here. It's only this, but with 20 degrees more, and then you're going to have a few drinks and stuff, and then you jump on the train, you go to Bordeaux. I think we'll have a good time in Bordeaux.
Can I not come?
Of course you can.
Oh, you just said him. We mean.
I don't know why. When I think of wine, I more think of tins than you.
How dare you? I've got an exquisite palate. I really appreciate the wine.
No, but listen,
more whiskey and seagulls.
Whatever I can get, really.
No, this is just a taster. Obviously, Paris is the crown jewel, and we're super proud of it. But the rest of France is going to be an incredible discovery for people who haven't had the chance to do it. And when you do it through rugby, for people who are happy, who want to party, who've got a big smile on their faces, it's going to be incredible. So I'm super proud of. You talk about all those little efforts that they make pre-match, post-match to actually get the entertainment going. Please, that has to be the center ingredient of what the World Cup is going to be, because the country will take care of the rest and the rugby will do so too.
When you came on the show last week, you were nervous about the Grand Slam. Are you more confident now about the World Cup, having won a Grand Slam? Doesn't make no impact at all.
It doesn't change anything.
Come on.
No, honestly, I told you, everybody loved us this week, everybody's going to hate us from tomorrow. And that's fair, that's competition.
Welcome to his world.
Yeah, of course. Apart from I don't get the love part.
If you take his jacket off, he's got France World Cup champions.
Exactly. Merci, Benjamin. See you soon. You must run for your Eurostar. Thank you very much indeed. And well done again to you and to France. And there he goes, a happy man, in a happy country, I think it's fair to say.
He's a bit jaded this morning.
Well, and rightly so. It's been a long time coming.
Speaks more sense than myself and James. Yeah.
Shall we do a little extra debrief on England? Because I don't quite know where to take it. There's a lot of noise, and it's going to get very noisy, and it's going to get very bumpy. You've been in that environment. Yeah. Is it easy to block all that out?
No, because it's not easy to block anything out these days, because it's all consuming. You'll have the opinion press, you'll have the old players, you'll have the people with agendas, you'll have the social media, you'll have the fans, you'll have fans that have been, message guys after the game, and then you'll have the people who probably have a bit more rationality and common sense, really, and will just realise this: A, it's a sport; B, we're not a million miles away as we should be, and we should be celebrating an amazing weekend of rugby that we've absolutely loved, because ultimately life does not change one bit whether your national team wins or loses. But it can be much more exciting if Italy win, which they did, if France put in a Grand Slam performance, and and if you've got any sort of rational thought, you appreciate what's in front of you. What you don't worry about, what you don't have. Just enjoy what you have been given, which is an incredible weekend of rugby. Because your life could be way worse. You could be in Ukraine without a house. So I'd just calm down if I were you.
If we're searching for positives in this England team at the moment, Ellis obviously probably at the top of the tree, but where else would you go?
Yeah, Ellis, Marrow. I think Underhill coming back in on the yesterday, I thought really added. You just forget what of a sort of tackling demon he is, and how he just gets round, and where he caught Jaminet and he lassoed him round, and that allows people to start attacking ball.
Courts, I thought was captain.
Yeah. I think Courts is just again evolving as he goes. I would say Freddie Stewart on the wing. had one of his had probably his best game actually. He was a menace for Jaminet under the high ball and created a lot of the stuff came off the back of it.
Also, we've got Marcus Smith. We found ourselves a new 10 that's had has had a chance during the autumn. He's now had his first Six Nations, gone into some pretty fierce cauldrons of places. We only had 2 home games. We've had 2 full Twickenham stadiums back. Thought the crowd last week were utterly incredible. When we played Ireland, when it went down there, they turned up. I think we can take a lot of learnings from it. I thought the positivity around for France, their stadium announcer, all that stuff that goes around it. I just think there's lots to be very happy about, and I think England is not that far off. I think, interestingly what Mike was saying earlier about the stats, our perception, some of the things we talked about were, I thought the gain line wasn't going to be there. I didn't think we'd had many metres, but obviously, as Mike pointed out, the fact they were kicking so deep, France, meant you had a lot of metres running up. Was that the full story? We ended up more passes, we had more gain lines, but that wasn't the image you got from the game. So I think you just need to take a moment, settle, don't do anything rash, and as I said, just enjoy it. And remember, there is a wealth of talent. But Mike made this point yesterday with the England Rugby travel guys. They said about swapping the teams in and out.
Yeah.
How many players would you swap? And that's not talking about coaches. There's nothing to do with it. It's about individual players on form, trying to execute a game plan, how well they're doing it. And I think they'll be disappointed. But actually, we're not a million miles away because these Six Nations is so close.
I think it would be interesting. I mean, there's no point in if, buts and maybes and shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But if you take out the 2 cards, Luke Cowan-Dickey's volleyball at Murrayfield and Charlie Ewell's hits 6 inches lower, it could be a totally different. I mean, I'm not sure they would have ever denied France the Grand Slam, but it could be a very different story.
It comes down to complete split-second moments. Marcus Smith hits touch into their 10. Yeah, if he doesn't put it into their goal, puts it 5 yards out, we get a driving line at 5 yards out.
Against Scotland, that was.
Yeah, could have possibly scored again. So there are split-second moments. Now, I'm not going to go away from it and say that and
actually, France could have lost in Cardiff if Jonathan Davis takes the try. Takes the part. I mean,
things that swings and roundabouts. I would say as a whole, we know what we get from England defensively. We know how good they are from that side of it. What I would like to see is what we didn't see this Six Nations is the attack didn't really fire.
Yeah.
Now that would be my only question to come out of it. We know we've got a set piece we can generally trust. We know we've got a forward pack that can deliver. We just didn't quite see the clinical nature that we need at scoring tries.
It was a fantastic atmosphere at the Stade de France, and actually you have to pay credit as well to the England fans who sang their heart out.
Yeah.
You had
There's a couple of battles of swing low.
There were a couple of rounds of swing low, and there was definitely a lot of sort of support there, and that leads us on to the week. I mean, we've just had a wonderful weekend. It is the fantastic thing about the Six Nations. You go into it in winter and you come out of it in the Parisian sunshine.
Talking about swing low, did you see the Irish team in the changing room singing swing low?
You showed it to me, yeah.
Yeah, good lads.
Good chat.
lads, that.
I like that.
If you can't laugh and smile and enjoy these bits and have this thing, what's the point of doing it? It's sport. It's meant to unify and be fun. It's not meant to be a massive lifestyle and mood setter,
We've had a very, very good weekend with England Rugby Travel, who've looked after us extremely well, and hopefully we've had a lot of fun along the way. We had a very good night on Friday.
We did. I was.
You were on good form. Back in your Parisian.
Well, I think it helps that you
strides.
and I sat on a beautiful sunny roundabout and drank a couple of bottles of Chateau Minuto, my favourite rosé, and then had a lovely little romantic dinner, and then bowled straight into an 800-person thing where I was elevated above the entire crowd in a bird's nest.
It's your perfect thing. Elevated, talking
it was
down
like,
to
it was a wire pulpit. It was like a hen coop.
Pastor Haskell was delivering a sermon. I told him to seal the doors. I had a microphone. No one could answer back. I was full flow. And
Chauncey was on good form.
Everyone panically came up shaking. All right, listen, make sure it's family friendly. Fuck off. Right, here we go. Straight in with the stories. One woman fainted. Oh my God, I've never heard such language. Fell down and ultimately blew the doors off, and that was it.
Yeah. And Chauncey, the ledge.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. I mean, Chauncey, for such a big man, softly spoken with a lot of panache there, very good-looking man, but he's got some stories. And he actually set the agenda. He told a very good story about when he appeared in the Jeu de Stade calendar, when the photographer made him go bottom up into a pile of gravel, sort of looking meekly over his shoulder, and Chauncey wasn't sure how he managed to get there and do it, and then that set me off. But he was brilliant. I actually did something with him again yesterday, so the fans are great. Then we had photos there, everyone's very complimentary and kind of enjoyed everything, and there was a real kind of buzz and positivity. I mean, they all kept making the cardinal error of asking me, so what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, you obviously haven't listened to the show.
What's happening
I don't know. Yeah, I was like, well, why are we here?
I thought Shawsey's story about, which he'll be able to tell you another time, about why his England career didn't flourish off the back of his dad going on a family trip was was a very good one. We had a good.
We've got a potential bird poo gate coming.
Well, you've been feeding them our pan of chocolate, our dough balls of the week. We had a good breakfast as well on Saturday morning. You brought a bit of rugby to proceedings, which was needed. It's quite intimate now.
It was quite nice. You do get fans who actually want to know a bit of the nuances, but it's hard to always get it across and get the points across, and sometimes the media dictate the agenda of the fan, which not sometimes the fans actually might know better than most of the media. So it's just reassuring them that they're on the right track, because most of them play.
You haven't got a column at the moment. You're certainly not wanting one, given the way that you're lacerating the quills.
No, but perhaps whenever I've done a column before, they let me write it solely myself. There was only one time when I was in England when I had that little spat with Brian Moore, and I referred to his behaviour as cretinous, and the media guy panicked and went, do you know what the word cretin means? I said, yes, it's a small deformed man. I said, well, again, why are you editing my paper? Is Brian Moore not the perfect example? So that was swiftly taken out. So I don't know why I don't have a column, but
nobody stays in this.
Nobody won't let me. Nobody have one, but I'd be very eager to write a column and actually say it how it is. But I don't think it necessarily fits into the narrative. But I did think
the fictional column.
The
fictional column.
The breakfast was very good, actually, wasn't it? You saw a few dusty faces. We were joined by a lovely lady called Hillary.
Yeah.
As I'm sort of head in hand, slightly dusty. You were sitting there. Can I join? So please join. Yeah. So Hillary joined us for breakfast. I signed 100 photographs because I had a photograph with every single person on a Eurostar carriage.
I quite enjoyed our GB and our Eurostar carriage.
Do you know
we're trying one game at a time. We're breaking you
It
down.
has become abundantly clear what a man of the people I am at the moment. I was talking to people, which is it's a novelty. I'm doing photos, which I'm always happy to do if you ask politely.
Normally, it needs to go through some sort of
rigorous vetting policy,
and payment system.
It's like a Jason Bourne training program, isn't it? What's it called?
It's getting back out there. Blackbriar.
That's right.
And Treadstone.
Treadstone. Let's get you on a Treadstone England Rugby supporters.
No. Oh, James, you've ripped someone's head off again. Sorry, I didn't have my own power.
Let's finish up, and then we're going to have a cup of coffee. Sit in the sunshine. We've got a late train back this afternoon. Well done, Bertie, the predictor.
Not a great week for
overall in the tournament. He's finished on an absolute flop. He went Wales, Scotland, and England.
Yeah.
I think the final. I think he was getting a bit tired.
He was getting very tired. He had to do 15 retrieves in one day.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he just didn't know where he was, what he was doing.
Similar concentration span to you.
He'd have picked up anything.
He was.
He brought back logs.
It was like shoes. Single day.
Single back in the day.
A furry friend Bertie, as we said, went Wales, Scotland and England, so he hasn't quite managed the full house, but he's done a very good job. Well done, Bert the predictor. We'll bring him back for the World Cup. He needs a lot of training to get through all the fixtures.
I love how you talk to him as if he's watching avidly at home. Well done, Bertie.
You talk to him as if he's watching at home.
I know, yeah.
You talk to Bertie.
What's that, Bertie? Alex is talking to you again. What? And there's a child down a well. Quickly go and rescue him. He's like laughing.
You talk to Bertie in a nicer tone than anything else on planet Earth.
Yeah, you do.
Including your wife.
I do talk to her, but Chloe's quite annoying sometimes, so... Joking! No,
well done, Bertie.
That's the first time I've seen the brakes being stamped on very quickly.
Love you!
Thank you to City Index, the leading provider of spread betting, CFD and FX trading, for making Bertie the predictor a reality and for being our partner. Lastly, listen up. We're coming on tour. It is genuinely very fast approaching our tour now, and we genuinely need to start doing a bit of work on it, because otherwise genuinely we could walk out and go, what are we doing?
Yeah. But if you've ever watched the show, we don't plan any of this. You've got a little clipboard that's got nothing on it.
No, it's got a bit of highlighted text, which I'm implored to read. So we are going on tour, as you know. We would love to see you there. Most of the shows are quite close to selling out. We've got a few extra tickets elsewhere, but Chris Ashton in Liverpool, Hamish Watson is in Edinburgh, Scott Quinnell is in Cardiff, Nick Easter's joining us in Newcastle, Mark Cueto is coming to Manchester, Genji is coming to Nottingham, don't miss that one, Jiffy Davis, always a riot in Swansea, Jeremy Guskett in Bath, and Ben Kayser is joining us in Oxford. We've got lots more guests to be announced for the rest of the dates in Sheffield, Cardiff, Manchester, Dublin, London, Birmingham, Bath and Southend to come. Head to goodbadrugby.com for all of the details. That's it. We came into the tournament saying France, Ireland close behind, England, Wales, Scotland will take lumps, and Italy are getting closer. And we leave the tournament with France as champions, Ireland close behind, England, Wales, Scotland taking lumps out of each other, and Italy haven't closed the gap.
So what you're saying is, we do know a thing or two about rugby?
I think it was Tim who said that.
Probably. Was I having an off day?
Well, in a shambles of a way, we get there in the end.
Where does this
as we excel?
Where does this overall tournament rate in the last 10, 15 years?
2
2 years ago was dire, last year was fun.
I think last year was still the best that we had. I think this year we just didn't get quite the tries that we had. It was a bit more attritional. The games were still good, but obviously we just didn't have the try-fest. Ireland led the try-fest this year. So, but I think I still, how many games still came down to the last minute? That's what I want. Even if the scoreline is 13-9 or whatever it is, you want it in the 84th minute. If you make a mistake, that's the pressure that you want to see. That is what Six Nations Rugby is about. And we had that in 3 or 4 games. So. Fantastic.
Articulate.
I thought it was great. Anytime you don't have to mention the vid, bubbles, people can be fun, crowds, spectacles, narrow games. France winning a Grand Slam. It doesn't get much better than that. And then we move on again.
A quick word on the women's tournament, which starts next week.
Starts
England
next week.
may well justify the hype this time around.
Yeah, I think so. 100%. They're on fire. I mean, the Red Roses are just from strength to strength to strength to strength. I'm covering a couple of games myself.
Let's hope that's a really good tournament. We have been the good, the bad and the rugby in Paris. Thank you very much indeed to England Rugby Travel again for a fabulous weekend. We'll see you next week. The show is produced by Shara Kilgallen, Josh Peacock, Dan Bollard, Nick Fletcher. Thank you to all of our team for getting us pointing in the right direction at the right time. The good, the bad and the rugby is a Folding Pocket production. Have a good rest of your week.